Killed by a mine north of Tuzla. President Clinton extends his sympathy, but says his Bosnia policy remains unchanged. And the big chill tightens its grip over much of the United States.
This is the CBS Evening News with Bob Schieffer.
Good evening. The first that no one wanted happened today in Bosnia. A U.S. soldier who stepped on a landmine became the first American member of the NATO peacekeeping force to be killed. Vicki Mabry is in Tuzla and has our report.
The first American fatality of the peacekeeping mission in Bosnia was manning a checkpoint about 25 miles north of the U.S. base at Tuzla when he reportedly stepped off the road and onto a mine. The soldier was medevaced from the checkpoint at Gradacic to the 212th Mobile Army Hospital nearby, where he was pronounced dead.
All soldiers understand that even though an area has been identified, there may be other mines around. They take nothing for granted.
Many American checkpoints are along former confrontation lines that are likely to be mined, though it's the responsibility of the warring factions to clear the devices now that the war is over. That job is not complete.
In our area, there are thousands of minefields that have already been identified. That's a lot of minefields for anybody to clear.
It has been a dangerous week for NATO forces in Bosnia. 3 British soldiers died last Sunday when their armored vehicle hit an anti-tank mine. 2 American soldiers injured by a mine received Purple Hearts yesterday. Second Lieutenant Robert Washburn of Gardner, Maine, lost part of his foot.
I'm lucky to be alive. I'm happy to be alive. Could have been a whole lot worse.
U.S. troops continue sweeping suspected minefields, exploding whatever munitions they find. The Army says it's trying to learn from this week's incidents, but the task force here already has made mine awareness training a priority. It's trying to get the people who laid the mines to remove them. That is, if they have any idea where they are. Vicki Mabry, CBS News, Tuzla.
On the campaign trail in New Hampshire, President Clinton, too, found himself talking about the soldier's death. White House correspondent Rita Braver now with that.
This was supposed to be President Clinton's triumphant march through New Hampshire, his chance to reconnect with voters who revived his ailing 1992 campaign, his chance to savor a primary season with no Democratic opposition. But just as Mr. Clinton was finishing an event aimed at highlighting his community policing initiative, came word of the first death of an American serviceman in Bosnia. Mr. Clinton was privately informed of the incident by a member of his National Security Council staff, but did not comment publicly until a reporter asked about the fatality.
There are reports that an American soldier was killed by a landmine in Bosnia. Have you heard of that?
At first, the president ignored the question, but then returned to respond.
Obviously, I'm very sad about it. Our people have worked very hard to be careful, to train, to avoid these mines, and to be successful in the demining effort. And I'm very sorry. But I don't know anything more than that.
Does this give you any pause about the mission in Bosnia, sir?
Not at all. I told the American people when we started that the place was full of mines. It's our biggest danger, and we're going to have to redouble our efforts.
Thank you.
Mr. Clinton went on with another round of campaign events, but before leaving to return to Washington, he made a more formal statement about the tragedy.
Hillary and I join all Americans in extending our deepest sympathies to his family and his friends. Our prayers are with you this afternoon, and so is the pride of the nation, where he gave his life in the noblest of causes, the search for peace.
There is no mistaking the anguish the president felt over the death of a young American soldier whom he had sent into harm's way. There is also no mistaking the fact that the president well understands that his own re-election could in large part hinge on the safety of American troops in the dangerous terrain of Bosnia. Rita Braver, CBS News, Manchester, New Hampshire.
Well, you have heard the individual stories about it being so cold that yesterday a man used a frozen banana for a hammer, and how the water was so cold in Springfield, Illinois, that it froze the ice machines. But check this for the picture overall. Sub-zero temperature was reported in 3/4 of the country overnight. Our roundup report tonight comes from Diana Olick in Dallas.
In the Northeast, you could say, been there, done that. But they're digging out again, this time from the same bitter cold front that's had the middle of the country on ice for days.
They canceled the flight, and they didn't let us know ahead of time, so we got to the airport, you know, and had to wait 7 hours.
Airports delayed or canceled flights with up to a foot of snow reported from New York down to Washington, even trapping former L.A. Mayor Tom Bradley.
I frankly have never really enjoyed snow.
In Chicago overnight, 17 fires were sparked by either faulty space heaters, people trying to thaw pipes, or homeless trying to stay warm. Cold has killed 3 of Chicago's elderly. The city remains under a weather emergency, and today Mayor Richard Daley held a rare Saturday briefing.
We will remain on this alert until the weather breaks.
In Kansas, a nuclear power plant is no match for the cold. The Wolf Creek plant is shut down as workers repair the cooling system, which is clogged with ice. Down south, snow and ice made driving treacherous and down power lines, touching off 2 house fires. This power company repairman tried to cut the lines. He survived, but further south, tornadoes reeled through Florida, touching down at least twice and causing 1 death.
I felt it pull me across the street, and I couldn't move.
Cold temperatures keep setting records from Minnesota down to Texas. In Dallas a year ago, a record was also set, a record high of 83 degrees. Today, Texans who normally take pride in taking the heat are taking refuge.
This is good, Mama.
This overnight shelter in Dallas is now open all day. With 5 dead already from cold this winter, the staff here is seeing more than 100 new faces.
Anytime that we have to stay open for any length of time, it really attacks our resources.
Forecasters are now predicting warmer temperatures, which would be a welcome wedding gift for Sherry and Ken Walgren. It was 12 below when they exchanged warm vows today in St. Paul. Word is they plan to stay inside for the honeymoon. Diana Olick, CBS News, Dallas.
Still ahead on the CBS Evening News, the Republican presidential hopefuls keep stepping up their rhetoric, and a victory on the soccer field helps bridge the racial gap in South Africa.